I take concentration power to be one of the three core skills that constitutes mindful awareness. Probably my very first discovery that's sold me on the meditative endeavor is I started at the end of an hour of meditation, of focus on breath. I started to notice that I would go into these states of, it was a light concentration, but for me it was a highly altered state, since like most people, I'd lived my life in a very scattered way. I started to notice that at the end of a period of breath counting, which is what they gave me in the Zen temple, that I would drop into these concentrated states. And my teacher told me, well, that's good, that's called Zammai. Zammai is the Japanese pronunciation of samadhi. That's good, but you now need to try to maintain that in all aspects of life as you go about daily life. And I said, how to do it? And he said, well, you start with simple things, the temple tasks that you have to do, the washing the floor, the washing dishes, raking the sand. Those are pretty simple things. You just focus on that, and then it will extend out to more and more complicated life activities. And in fact, I found it was true. Over the years that eventually became over the decades, it has developed in two directions. It's gotten deeper, 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 and it's gotten broader, 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 meaning able to maintain it in more and more complex life situations. And as I said, I noticed it was intrinsically rewarding. There was just something, it didn't matter what I was focusing on. If I had high concentration, that in and of itself was a reward. It was, maybe I shouldn't use the word, but it was a high. That sort of sold me on this. It's like, how cool is this? I could just do this. I'll never waste any time again in my life. If I'm just sitting around waiting in a doctor's office or something like that, I won't have to waste my time or waiting for a plane. I'll just get into this concentrated state. See, all my life I was afraid of being bored. I hated being bored. And I discovered that there wasn't any more boredom. Because if you take something that's intrinsically boring and focus on it in a very, in samadhi, if you can taste the samadhi, if you can taste the concentration, as you're focusing on this boring thing, it's not boring anymore. It's intrinsically rewarding. So that's pretty cool. And then I was able to appreciate why in monasteries east and west they give you such boring tasks to do. The archetypal task for Catholic nuns would be stamping out communion wafers. Okay? Just a whole lifetime of just making communion wafers. I would suggest to you that's either heaven or hell, depending on how, to use their term, how recollected you can become as you do that task. If you become highly focused on that task, it's more and more and more intrinsically interesting. I also discovered that not only does the highly focused state carry an intrinsic reward, but it also reduces suffering. When they finally took me into the temple, they said that they would, this was in Japan, they would let me come into the temple, but they wouldn't teach me any of the Shingon practices, the secret Vajrayana practices. But I could stick around and work in the temple, and they gave me these simple tasks to do, and I was bored to death until somebody pointed out to me, well, that same state that you get into when you do the breath meditation, you can get into that state when you do these boring tasks. So that was great. So I did these boring tasks for about a year and started to discover they weren't, as I said, I could be intrinsically fulfilled doing these very simple things. Then they finally said, okay, well, you seem to be serious about this. You've been sticking around, and you memorized the whole liturgy on your own, which is, as a foreigner, is pretty impressive. You're able to memorize these long texts in Sino-Japanese, and you've kept your nose clean. So okay, we're going to let you We're going to initiate you into these secret practices, but you're going to have to do it the old-fashioned way. At this temple, we do it the old-fashioned way. So I found out what the old-fashioned way meant. So it's 100 days in isolation, in winter, with essentially very little source of heat. I mean, a few charcoal briquettes while you're in your room, but you're mostly not in your room. You're in the main hall of the temple where there's no source of heat, and it's a blizzard outside, and you're doing these tantric rituals 3 times a day. But before each one, you have to go to this frozen cistern, break the ice, fill this bucket full of ice water, take all your clothes off, and like douse yourself with this freezing water, and then dry yourself with a towel that's about 6 inches square in size that freezes in your hands as you're attempting to dry yourself. You're actually like knocking the ice out of this thing. So it's like 3 rituals a day with this mizu gori. Okay, mizu gori in Japanese. Mizu means cold water. There's 2 words for water. There's not a single word for water in Japanese. If it's hot water, it's called yu. If it's cold water, it's called mizu. Gori means to purify, to take away the impurities. So this cold water purification. You're going to have to do 3 cold water purifications every day for 100 days. So it's like day number 3. And something I had noticed was that if I kept in a focused state while I did this thing, it was bad, but it wasn't unbearably bad. It was just like bad. But if my attention was wandering, it was unbearably bad. And it's like day number 3, and I have this epiphany. There's 97 more days here. And I see in front of me not a fork, but a trichotomy. There's exactly 3 things that are going to happen. Either I'm going to give up because I can't handle this, and return to the United States in deep disgrace, or I'm going to suffer for the next 97 days abjectly, or I'm going to stay in a state of samadhi for the next 97 days to the best of my ability. And I didn't want to give up in deep disgrace, and I sure didn't want to suffer abjectively for 97 days. So I decided, okay, at least I know it reduces the suffering if I keep in a highly focused state. So I'm just gonna I'm gonna do my damnedest not to suffer. Not to suffer in the sense of, well, I'm gonna have to go through this thing, but try to keep as focused as I can. So you might say that that was a giant biofeedback device. Negative biofeedback device. Go out of samadhi, you're miserable. Go back into samadhi, well, it's at least bearable.